Welcome to the Mavens of Marketing, a weekly podcast hosted by me, Rachel Durkin.
And me, Kerry Barrett. We talk all things marketing, innovation, sales, and business growth strategies, and the standard tried and true marketing techniques.
Come for the conversation, stay for the savvy insights.
And the borderline inappropriate jokes.
Hi, party people, and welcome to this episode of the Mavens of Marketing. We have an absolutely fantastic guest with us today. I cannot wait to talk to her. Before we talk to Ali, we'll give you a quick little intro on your two fabulous co-hosts. I'm one of them. My name is Kerry Barrett. I'm the owner-founder of Kerry Barrett Consulting. I help my clients expand their digital and media reach through the use of compelling and effective video. And my duo, my better half, Rachel Durkin.
Oh, you're better. It depends on the day who's better. Let's be honest with ourselves.
It's usually you.
I don't know about that, but thank you for the compliment. I will take it. I'm Rachel Durkin. For those of you who don't know me, I run Paradigm Marketing and Design. We are a web marketing and branding agency, leading with strategy first. And we focus on clients mostly who have complex sales or are in a B2B marketplace.
Fabulous. And with that, drum roll, please. The fabulous, beautiful, wonderful Ali Levine. How are you?
Hi, ladies. I'm good. How are you? Excited to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you. Number one, I always like looking at what you're wearing because you always have the most fabulous accessories. Like,
she's like, I just threw myself together.
Yeah.
Look, I probably sleep in like honestly half the story. Like little tip, if you're your mom, you don't have time, you can just sleep in half of it.
And it could be a toy for the baby to play with too.
Yeah, multi-purpose, right?
Well, you're talking right now directly to two moms, and I know that there are other moms out there. So one of my secrets, and boy, I should not admit this because my dermatologist and let's be honest, the person who fills my face with Botox and filler will hate me for saying this, but every now and then I know that if I have something really early to do in the morning and I'm not going to want to do the full makeup, I've learned how to spackle it on from my TV days and keep it fairly immutable, like throughout the night, and I'll just wake up and refresh with a little lipstick and powder and call it good.
Oh, girl, I've done that.
You have?
That's
Okay.
impressive.
Yes,
I haven't done that.
I have figured out like the best setting sprays too. So like I will like make sure it is like set so it doesn't move as much. So it's not as much of a shit show the next morning when you wake up and you're like, ooh, let me touch this up and let me do this, let me do that. It's like, I'm like, okay, I just have to touch up a little bit of this, add a little glow, and like good to go. And trust me, yeah. And I've slept in like eyelash, the faux lashes, like the whole thing. So I'm with you. Sometimes you just need to have those hacks.
You guys are really impressive. The best I do is wear my workout clothes to bed.
Oh yeah. I'm with you on that. I will sometimes occasionally even wear the same thing I have been wearing all day to bed.
Depends on how bad the day's gone. Yeah.
Or how well the day's gone, depending on your perspective.
That's true.
So before we jump into everything that you're going to talk to us about your brand, I need to know about the setting sprays. What do you use?
Oh my gosh, the setting sprays. Okay, so I have two I really like. I like Tata Harper because it's just clean and soft and easy. And then I like Morphe's as well because when I want to do a little bit of a, I don't want to say heavy, but it's a little bit more like, I think like potent, like kind of sticks a little more. If I know I've got like lashes and the whole thing on, I'll just do that. And honestly, I'll even spray my lashes a little bit and I'll like lay down and I swear I only have to touch it up a little bit. It's so terrible to say, like, but it really does work.
I'm in. And that right there is worth the price of admission. Okay.
Depending on your gender and your preferences, just saying.
maybe even not your gender.
That's true. I could go either way.
So, Ali, we want to talk to you about your personal brand and what you do and how you grew it. Why don't you take a moment, though, before we jump into all of that, to introduce yourself to our audience. Let them know a little bit about Ali and like I just said, allow myself to introduce myself, what you do and why you do it.
I love it. Oh, well, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. So yes, for anyone that doesn't know me, I'm Ali. I am a TV personality, influencer, content creator, blogger, fellow podcaster, celebrity stylist and fashion expert, host. I wear many, many hats like these amazing ladies. And I'm a mom of two. As I mentioned, I'm a mom. I have a 3-year-old and or 11-month-old now. She just turned 11 months, crazy. And so, yeah, I wear many hats, and I started in the fashion space, is where I really like grew my brand per se, and got to watch it kind of change and evolve and transition over the years. But I always have said fashion is my passion, and I love helping others feel confident. I always say confidence is your best accessory, and I mean it. I help others find confidence and exude it in and out. And it started really with their clothing, with like helping them figure out how to get dressed, especially in the world of Hollywood. I'm originally from New York. I moved out to California over a decade ago now. And I started working with all these different people, helping them find that confidence. You know, it's funny, some people think that celebrities have it all, and they do in many ways, but when it comes to their confidence and what maybe they should wear and how they feel, it really, for many, is not there. And so I got to work with so many amazing people and watch their confidence transform and what they were wearing. And that's when I really fell in love with just the idea of how confidence, you know, takes over. And it really isn't necessarily the clothing I learned. It's really about the feeling you get from the clothing and learning how to step out of your comfort zone. You know, different TV segments sharing, you know, what people were wearing on Best Dressed and Red Carpet and all that fun stuff. And when I went from there, then I started getting booked for lifestyle TV segments. I wound up on a crazy show on Bravo that some know me from called Stripped. And it was a documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. But it was a documentary, like reality, all about my life and my husband's life, and having everything taken away from you and how you survive, and being like celebrity stylist and fashion expert very much in the, you know, Hollywood space. It was quite insane, to say the least. That kind of launched me into further the limelight of doing more TV work and everything, and just doing a lot of like really cool segments. And then, you know, getting pregnant right after the show, my people were sharing my journey everywhere of like me being a new mom. And that's what kind of launched me into the mom space and the influencer space and more of the content space, I guess, if you will. And from there, it was just kind of like this free for all of like, hey, here's my life. I didn't expect to share this much with you, but here it is.
Well, and you do share, I mean, but there's so much that we want to talk to you about as far as influencers and how to work with them and establishing your personal brand. And I love that you mentioned what clothing can do as well, because that's part of your, really part of your brand as well. And some people don't see it that way. I want to start with content and content creation, because you do a lot of it. And if you don't follow Ali on Instagram, you should, at Ali Levine Design. How do you know what it is that you should create?
So I always love this question with content, because to be honest, which is a huge part of, you know, my brand and content, is being honest and being real and being vulnerable. You know, in the beginning, I really had no idea what I was posting. So, you know, in the beginning, it was all the styling. It was best dressed. How do you get this look? Get the look for less. So it was very kind of like controlled for me. And it was like, people want this, give them this. So it was kind of easy in that sense. I just had to get creative in what I was doing. But then when I got into the more of the like real Ali sense of like my personal brand, which I never expected to be in, and sharing my motherhood journey. So I just started sharing from a really raw place of like where I was struggling. Maybe I needed to vent and I needed to just get it out. And I was trying to, you know, share what I was being like, you know, feeling. Like my postpartum depression was a huge part of that in the beginning. It was like, I'm really struggling with my postpartum depression. How do I, you know, say this in like the most, you know, real way possible without depressing everybody, but still really being honest and real about what I was sharing, you know? And so it was like, okay, I'm going to take a picture of myself with like my pregnant belly that I thought I was like so stunning in, next to the picture of like me with my C-section scar that I don't feel so stunning in, and be like, okay, same body, but like struggling with this body, you know? And I think, you know, over time, I've just kind of learned, like, I wanted to always be a very positive, happy space, in the sense that like, that is my brand and who I am. And even with like, when I style, like everything's usually bright and very, you know, in your face, colorful. The same idea. I'm just like, I'm messaging you know, meditating and enjoying the day, talk about that day and how you got through it. And so I think I've been learning from my community too. My community really tells me like, hey, this is what we like, or by just the likes and impressions and the analytics and following what they're saying, I can tell like, okay, they're into this. Maybe they're not into this as much. And I try to feed my community as well, but also try to stay true to me, which honestly is hard. There are times where I'll share something. I don't get as much maybe feedback as I'd like to, but I felt like I really need to share that. Like a good example is I've been very heavily sharing kind of my spiritual awakening journey in the last year. And that was something I never expected, honestly, to really share. And I just felt like, especially everything that's going on in the world, it's needed for people to have somewhere to feel like they can talk more openly about that, even if they're in, you know, a whole different journey, just to share like, hey, I'm new to this. I'm figuring it out for myself, but like, it's helping me find even my own confidence. It's helping me find sanity in this crazy world right now. It's helping me deal with things and sharing things like I'm doing affirmations and working with different cool like meditation companies. And people are like, oh, you never talked about this before. And I'm like, I know, it's new to my journey. And so I think it's this dance, right? Between like what I'm always sharing and talking about to like what maybe is new in my life and what I want to share. And how do I kind of combine the worlds to still excite people around that or introduce them to something new in a very organic and authentic way. And to be honest, I'm always learning. Like, so like, for example, I was creating content the other day and I wanted to talk about, you know, this company I'm working with that is like, it's kind of like a probiotic for the body. And so it helps you like reset your gut health. I don't normally talk about gut health, but I'm very, very like passionate about moms and helping them heal their bodies. And there's a big tie into that when it comes to, you know, healing your body. So I was like, okay, I'm going to create really beautiful shots of me like in my bedroom, like getting ready for like my nightly routine and like what this looks like for me, and like have my journal and have the supplements there along with like the meditation and my crystals and all the things that like I normally have in my life, you know. And like I'm going to do another setup outside in like my active wear, like doing meditation and breath work, because this is something I do every day. And then this supplement ties into this. So I think I've learned over the years, like how to make it seamless and way more real and engaging and interesting, because it ties into my actual lifestyle of Ali and my brand, and not just, hey, look at these supplements, you should buy them. You know what I mean?
I do. And I think it's interesting because a lot of people are really hesitant. And I think maybe it varies between business or industry, but they're hesitant to make that overlap between the two sides of themselves, business and professional. And there's some areas that you should, keep separate perhaps.
For sure.
But I do love the stuff that you post on Instagram about the struggles with being a mom, because you are a stylist, you do work with a lot of big names. And I think people have this assumption that, she's always going to have it all together, and everybody's going to bounce back right away, which let me tell you, did not happen for me. I'm like, I thought
either, and still working on.
And so I love because it's not personal stuff that's like just for the sake of like sharing. I mean, sometimes that's fine too, but it is very, the way that you've created those two sides of your online persona, of your online presence, they mesh and dovetail very well. Would you have, what would you, is there any, I guess, guidance you would give to people who are looking to create content that's both business and professional in terms of bringing those two elements together when they're creating their brand?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. Like there are some things you leave right to the side and you're like, okay, I'm not going to talk about that. Just doesn't work. But I think there is this kind of like scary place. I know it was for me too, of kind of like just merging the worlds and all of a sudden being like, oh, I'm going to be more personal here and, still be business. And I think for me, it goes back to like the branding and the messaging of like your why, right? Which your why can obviously always be changing. But like one of my big whys has always been confidence, like always, since, I started in the fashion space and helping people feel confident, finding confidence with my own self. I feel like that's now my new journey of sharing on my branding, is like You've helped others find confidence for years. Now you have to find it within yourself, being a new mom and being an entrepreneur and doing all the things and being real about that and like what you're doing to help you find that and get back to that place. Because like you just said, being in the, public eye and being a Hollywood stylist and all things I've been doing, everyone did expect me just to like jump back into everything as soon as I had the girls. I did too. Like I totally thought I would go right back. My body would be the same. I get back on set, I have my girls and I'd be like, all good, no big deal, and it just, that was not the case. It wasn't reality at all.
So have you ever had a situation where you sharing too much personal information has affected your business life or vice versa? Or have you ever run across that?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, you always are going to have like what quote unquote trolls.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
I would say more in the sense of, some brands have said like, oh, you're too open about this. So, we're not going to do this partnership. And I've had to learn that that's okay. That, not every brand is meant for you. Not every single thing, even if you think it's an opportunity, is necessarily an opportunity. Yeah. And that I didn't necessarily always want to be a yes girl anyways. In the beginning, I did say yes to almost every brand because I was building my content, building my influencer status, if you will, whatever. And I needed to have that content. I needed to have the brands send me product, just gifted to use to create content. But then, I started getting to a place where I could pick and choose. And it's like, okay, well, if they also don't choose me, like, that's okay. Then that just means we don't align. And I think as I got older and as I got like more into the business, I realized it's the same thing of me choosing which celebrities I didn't want to work with anymore. In the beginning, I took everybody under the sun. Didn't matter who they were, even if it wasn't something I wanted to do. It was the worst project. I did it because I wanted the name, I wanted the project, all of it. But the then experience, experience, the resume, everything, like the networking, the contacts, the list goes on. I mean, you guys know this, and so as I built my brand, I was like, okay, I can pick and choose now. Like, I don't want to work with so-and-so. Maybe I don't have to deal with their attitude. And like, you
like,
start
like
really,
who?
Right. She signed some paperwork, Carrie. You were trying to get people in trouble on this.
Lots of NDAs.
I bet.
So the reason they have them.
Yes. So when we stop recording, we'll ask the question again. But so Ali, you do a ton of influencer work. What advice would you give to businesses or marketing professionals who want to leverage influence marketing in their strategies, and how should they go about doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, when brands come and work with me, like one of the first things I ask them is like, what is, your real mission statement? Like what is it they're really trying to drive and get across? And maybe are you not getting across in this space that like I can help you create, and a lot of times, obviously for me, it's something to do with motherhood or it's something to do with in a lifestyle space. And so depending what that is, I really write out for them, like, these are the ideas I have for my creative content I'm going to create. I'm going to be here in this space, showing the product here. And I feel like it organically ties into, A, B, C, and D, example, again, like the supplement I was talking about, when I was on the phone with them, I was like, what are some of the biggest driving points you're trying to get across here? And they're like, well, you're reaping the benefits of mother's milk, because it's a really cool brand called True Lacta. And they were like, you're reaping the benefits literally of mom's milk. And some people are like, they're on the fence, like, oh, wait, so it's actually like mother's milk in a capsule. And it's like, yeah, but that actually is like, it surpasses prebiotics and probiotics for the gut. It's like, literally, it's all you need to take to help heal your body. And they're like, so we can't talk about it as a cure because obviously we can't speak to that, but like, we know real situations of people, inflammation going down, with mom getting more sleep, all these things. So I'm like, okay, so let's talk about the things that actually people are seeing results from, and let's create content around that. So me in my bedroom, getting ready for my, nighttime routine before I can get a good night's sleep. Every mom, every person can relate to a good night's sleep. Yeah. How do you want to make that look pretty, and like, what does that look like? Okay. You want to show that it helps with inflammation and that you can get through your daily routine because you feel better. All right. So then here I am sitting outside in the sunlight, enjoying the day. Yeah. And, here is, the brand next to me while I'm enjoying my day. And so I think obviously every brand is different, but I really go through with them of like, what's their why, what's their mission, and where do they see me aligning with that? And how do we create that so that when even on myself, when I look at influencers and I look at something, it attracts me. I have to think of the same mindset. Like, well, how am I attracting you? And we know like commercials are, kind of becoming obsolete in a sense. We're seeing more and more online podcasts, digital, all of it. So how do you get someone's attention? You know, what are the driving messages? And so for me, I try to really always bring it back to this real raw space, because I feel like that's where I stand out and I've resonated in, you know, the community space. But also, like, how do I make it fun and pretty? How does it look stylish? Because that is Ali. And I think it's combining all the elements of you, right? So it's like, what is it that speaks to you? Some people, it's like they're amazing in fitness. So like, what are those angles of their fitness? You know, and everybody's different. But I think that really tapping into that, where I feel like influencers miss the mark. And I have to be honest, I've done this as well. You try to do something different than like, what is your brand? It's got to be your
It's gotta be
brand,
real.
your why. You'll fail every time. I've tried it because I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just like, no, it doesn't resonate, because you built your brand for a reason. And I feel like that's kind of a good thing, because like you built it enough, right, that people recognize your brand and who you are. But when it's not your voice, or it's not necessarily something that resonates with you and what you're doing, people are like, wait, did she even write that? Did she even post that? Like, it's very obvious. I had to be honest, when, you know, as I grew as an influencer, I had to end up taking back all of the responsibilities of my influencer career. Because in the middle, I kind of passed it off because I was like trying to build and do content, and I couldn't, like, editorial content, writing everything out. And people were starting to like be like, did she write that? That doesn't sound like her voice. Like, I was getting DMs, people asking me like, do you really like that product? And I was like, whoa, that was my sign of like, people weren't resonating with the brand anymore. People were like questioning, and you never want that, obviously, in the influence space. Want people to trust you, you build them to trust you. So I had to take that back and say, hey, I got to put this back on my plate, move something else around, reprioritize, and I have to work on these captions now. So, you know, I think it's different for everybody, but it's really your why and your, you know, the mission, and working with the brand to be able to align to get that message out there to drive the integration.
So when you're a business, you really have to have those answers nailed down in your own mind.
In your own mind, yes.
Yeah. And then so that you can answer them effectively, because it's great. You might reach out to somebody who has a massive following, but if it's not the right alignment
it won't go
you,
anywhere.
Then it's not going to work. And I always think of this one example, and I cannot remember for the life of me where I read it, but it was a woman's bathing suit line, and they were looking for influencers, and and it was like a, you know, comfort line. It wasn't like a sexy, like thong string bikini sort of thing. It was like, this is for people who are like going to actually swim, perhaps. And
maybe they'll get their hair wet.
Right. And
maybe they'll actually move.
So they had reached out to Sports Illustrated people and models and stuff to do, right, will you do some influencer work, which is great. But most of the people who, like, what they talk about on their social platforms, and the people who are following them, are not entirely, but a large part men, and they're not looking for women's comfort bathing suits. And so they went with somebody who had a much smaller following, but was all in that target demographic. And they made a huge inroad there. And so it's not just about the numbers. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said, understand like where the alignment really is, and don't be blindsided by, oh, this person has 1 million followers or 500,000 followers or whatever it is. Think about who that audience is. So
and I think too, like with brands, like, you know, I love that you said that, because I think even on the influencer side, right? Like, I have a responsibility also when I speak to certain brands, when I'm on the phone with them. Like, for example, a few weeks ago, I had a huge brand deal come to me. It was big money, but it was for like a video game thing. And I was like, well, I can bring my husband into this because he plays video games all the time. And like, I'm happy to like loop him in and show him and have me be a part of it. But like, if you're asking me to sit on a video game on my screen, like on my feed, like, I'm not doing it. Everyone's going to be like, oh, she just got paid to do that. And I never want, my followers obviously know, my community know I get paid, but I never want them to feel like I'm forcing an ad down their throat. There's nothing worse, right? When you're even watching TV and you're like, oh, this ad again, or oh, this is this. Like, you know, when you feel like you're being forced information that you don't really want to. That's kind of the nice thing about the social space. It's not the same kind of commercial. It's like you kind of pick and choose what you get to see. That being said, people can unfollow you, people can quiet you, you know, mute you, whatever. So you have to be careful about what you choose to share, and decide like, where's the line between the alignment, the branding, the money, you know, all the things that tie into it. It's not just, oh yes, sign me up and I'll post about this.
Right. 100%. That makes, so I'm going to sort of dovetail, we've talked about so much, but one thing I want to make sure that we get in before we wrap is, and I don't mean spit rhymes. I mean, shut down the podcast.
Thank you for clarifying for us less cool people.
When it comes, because you are a stylist and you're aware of how that plays into your brand and the way you talk, can you talk to us a little bit about that? I don't think people necessarily realize, as much as they should anyway, that appearance, style, it's all part of developing what your brand
absolutely.
is, right?
I love this question. Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's interesting when people start to build their brand, right? Or even build online presence, that first off, a lot of people are afraid to step obviously in front of the camera, which I get. It's very intimidating. I was there a long time ago, even though most don't believe that. I look at videos of myself back in the day and I'm like, oh, what were you saying? I was like really nervous.
I don't watch my videos of myself from yesterday, so that's pretty good.
I mean, hey, it happened. There's time I'm like, what did I just say? But you know, we all have those moments, right, of being like nervous and not having that confidence, and that goes along with the clothing though. It's like when you get dressed and you feel good, like Rachel was saying when we first got on, she's like, well, I popped this lip on. And I'm like, all right, I'm good. I'm ready to go. And she does. She looks fabulous. She got a great, pop of color. And sometimes that's all it takes. But, you have to step into that confidence of like, let me get myself together and feel good and feel like I'm rocking what I'm wearing. And if I'm wearing something and I'm just like, whatever about, well, guess what? Your entire brand, your entire message, everything is going to come across that way because you're feeling meh. It's going to mute that into everybody else. And so I always tell people, like, when you're getting yourself together, to think about what you're feeling and what you're wearing, not only just the confidence, but like, what does it make you feel like? Like, is it transforming you in a good way? Is it making you feel powerful? Is it making you feel excited? Like, like, what is it doing for you? If it's not doing anything for you, then the clothes are just sitting on you. And clothes, yes, they're wonderful. You can get the most expensive thing, but I've learned this again, being in the space of styling. I've gotten the most gorgeous designer, insanely could never afford myself dresses for celebrities. And I watched it just hang on them. And I remember like years ago standing there like in awe, like, how is this happening? These dresses are like phenomenal, and then I realized they didn't have the confidence to wear it. They didn't have the confidence to pull it off. And so therefore it was hanging on them and they weren't stepping into it. So you really have to think about what you're wearing and focus on how it makes you feel in order to step into that confidence and say, I feel put together. I feel good. Now I can share my message. Now I can share what I want to talk about with my brand and know it's the whole package deal and not just say, I'm just going to sit here, and in my comfies, which like, look, this last year, we've all been guilty of that. So have I. Sweat chic is for me.
100%.
But when you have to bring it, you got to get it together. Like sometimes for me being a mom, that's only once a week. Like on Monday, I did batch content for like 4 hours straight. And I was like, got myself super glam and I was changing in and out of outfits like crazy and filming and pictures and the whole 9 yards. And then the rest of this week, except for today with you ladies, like I would be in sweats,
or maybe even pants or sweats, but the top looks good. That's acceptable also right now.
Just the top covered, you're good to go. The Zoom ready, which is funny actually. I've been doing so many Zoom fashion consults and styling, which has been like a world I never thought I'd tap into. It's actually a lot of fun to help people get ready. But even that being said, right, like getting on a Zoom and just putting yourself together. What is the message you want to get across to the audience? What do you want people to feel? What do you want them to know about you with the clothing you're wearing? Clothing can be such an expression if you choose for it to be. What is that for you? And ask yourself that question and ask yourself, do you feel confident in this where you feel it is transforming you from the inside out? Not, oh, well, this was expensive or, oh, this was on a magazine. And so I think I should wear it. It needs to feel good to you, to your brand, to who you are, to your messaging, and not just be something you just chose to throw on. Clothing has a lot more energy than people realize.
No, you're so right. And I'm going to piggyback off of that for 1 second before I ask you the final question, or Rachel does, but I always wear really bright colors, and sometimes I wear patterns, even though I would tell my clients if they're not super familiar with the camera that they're going to be in front of, stay away from a pattern. I know my camera, my lighting, and that sort of thing. But people constantly message me and say, I always stop on your videos because like when I'm going through the scroll, you're the only one who's like, maybe this is LinkedIn. You're the only one who's like wearing a bright color and it grabs my attention. And so I've kept at it, right? I very rarely wear black, even though I love it. Same for white. But even though I love it, But what I had a live stream yesterday, and I was hosting it with these two super high-end commercial real estate investors. And it was going to be a fairly buttoned up crowd. And I thought for a moment, oh, do I wear like a blazer? Do I wear a navy blue blazer? Do I wear a black blazer? And then I was like, man, I've been on so many calls with these people.
Mhm.
They know that that's what they want. So don't second guess yourself. And so I went in a bright dress that was like red and pink and navy blue, and it had a pattern. And I think that's part of it too. We tend to second guess ourselves sometimes, like, well, maybe this is too buttoned, you know.
Maybe I should play small.
Yes, right.
Yeah, and your clothes are dictating your brand for the day. Wait, now, Kerry, is this the interview where you were drinking whiskey by the end? So
that's also, yes, that was a part of it.
But maybe you overthought the clothing.
Bring it.
I was not drinking prior to getting dressed. So I made that
only afterwards.
In the harsh light of day, I made that decision, and it was the right one. But yes, they brought whiskey and wine, and I'm like, let's have this be a
let's have a party.
Yes, exactly.
Do you guys want to?
But I love that you said that.
Thank you.
Let me just, I want to ask Ali our last question since we're running out of time, but I have to just tell you guys a secret. So since COVID, I haven't been able to get my team all in one place for photo shoots. And on our website, we have a lot of like full body shots of us like working together. And as we've had new people, I haven't been able to get shots of them. And so we started this thing where we would get a headshot and then we'd be like, now go pick your body on Shutterstock. And there's been a fight over like the different outfits that are available in the body shots.
So, I love it. The creativity, it's, you know, I have to say, I mean, it's awesome. And I love that you said that about, you know, color, because color is everything. Even if you love black and white, it's like color just does it. It's like, hey, I'm here, you know?
Yeah. So Ali, we're running out of time. You're so much fun to talk to, but let me ask you our last question, which is, what is the weirdest thing that's ever happened to you?
I know you prepped me on this earlier, and I'm like, what is the weirdest thing that ever happened to me?
It's a hard question.
I'm gonna have to go with this one, and I don't know, is the weirdest. I guess it's on the top list, so I'll go there. Okay, so when I first started in the entertainment industry, and like I said, I'm originally from New York, and I was working on my first movie, which was Wall Street Money Never Sleeps. I was Oliver Stone's PA, production assistant. I was, you know, below the totem pole, and I did anything and everything, you know, for this movie. And so that being said, you know, one night at midnight, I was told to take this like brown paper bag, get on a subway and go all the way out to like literally, you know, what are we talking here? Like Harlem, like past Harlem, like really like up there.
Way up north.
Exactly. Like really way out there on my way home to like drop this bag off. But like nobody tells me what it is.
Yeah.
Nobody says anything. You just say, make sure you take this and you drop it off and you pick up from something else from them. And then you tomorrow come in, you know, to the office with it. And I'm like, okay. And I remember sitting on the subway. First off, it's super late. I'm like exhausted. I have no idea what's going on. People are staring at me. I feel like everyone's watching me. I'm like thinking like everyone knows what's in this bag but me. By the way, still have no idea what I did, what I was a part of.
You didn't look. I would have looked.
No, I did not look. I was too nervous. I was like, I just had it shut and I like held it and I got it there. But then I knock on the door and this big man comes outside and he's like, you Ali? And I'm like, yeah. You know, and he's like, takes the bag from me and then is like, hands me another bag. And I'm like, I think it was like a blue bag. I'm like, what is happening? And he's like, you know, here you go. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, shuts the door. And I'm like, okay. Like go right back to the, you know, to the subway. And I'm like, what just happened? I don't know what happened. I'm texting all my friends and I'm like, I don't know, like maybe somebody's following me. I was paranoid.
Oh my God.
What was in the new bag?
Like, I just thought that was so weird. Honestly.
You didn't look in either bags though?
I didn't. No, I was too afraid. But so I was like, if I peek, like what if somebody's around? Like,
what if it's like a test? It's like a test about how trustworthy you are.
That's what I thought. Right. Exactly. I felt like someone was watching me and like they're seeing, like, can they trust me? Like what's happening? You know, but it was so weird to me. Like all my friends were like, so what was it? And I'm like, I don't know. And then the next day, Oliver Stone said to me, he's like, good job. And he's like, Tony said you did a good job. And I was like, who's Tony?
Tony. Oh my God. Tony was the one who was following you.
Oh my gosh.
I don't even know.
I love it.
I would have totally looked, and then I feel like it would have been one of those things where like glitter or like paint would have smacked your face because
Yeah.
it
I
was
know,
a
right? I
test.
was waiting. I'm like, do I just like quit? Do I just like take it? No, I was too afraid. Every time I went to like
Or-
really like move it, it was like it would be like tighter, and I was like, maybe not.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
or it's like, you know, if there's something that's untoward going on, you don't want to.
One of my girlfriends said, she's like, what if it was like drugs or something? I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Ugh.
Body parts.
It's probably better that you didn't know. Yeah.
Probably better, right?
Yeah,
Just mum's the word.
Yeah, it's probably like a stash of like Sour Patch Kids or something.
I know, right? Like something silly, like their favorite Kit Kat. They had to get it in downtown. Like, you know, I mean, like, who knows? I mean, like,
Well, celebrities have weird things, so you never know.
That is true. That is true. They do.
I did an event once with Maya Angelou, and she like demanded M&Ms and vodka in her back room. Like that was it. I was like, okay. Yeah.
I mean, if someone wanted to tell me, but it was very covert up, and I was just like, okay, here we go. Very James Bond. In my heels at like midnight, like, you know, addressed to like, you know, like all up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's
on
happening?
the train? Oh God.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So you know, we've learned tons from you today. We've been all over the place, from branding to styling and content creation and influencer work. If people are interested in learning more about you, if they may be interested in hiring you, where should they find you? How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, this was so much fun. Well, thank you so much for having me. I have to say, I love the bright blue and I love the bright pink red lip, Rachel. You guys brought it with the color. It was so
nice. Thank you.
So you can follow me on all social at Ali Levine Design, just ALILEVINE Design, no S. And I mostly spend my time on Instagram, though I do get on, you know, Twitter and Facebook and TikTok every now and again. And you can DM me. I love to say hello. If you heard me on this, you know, amazing show, please say hi. I have a podcast called Everything with Ali Levine. You can check that out. It's everything about my real raw journey as an entrepreneur and also personal branding and just all things. Kerry was actually a guest. Rachel, I'll have to have you on next.
I would love that.
Yes. And my website is alilevine.com. Speaking of branding, it's actually going to be coming out this week in a new rebrand. So check that out. And if you want to hire me, you can either DM me or just go to alilevine.com and hit, you know, book me to request about services. And I will be happy to help you out.
Wonderful. Ali, thank you so much. You were amazing.
Thank you. It was so much fun.
Oh, wonderful. And to our fabulous audience, thank you for joining us for this episode of the Mavens of Marketing. We'll see you back here next week, same time, same place. Bye.
It's a teaser.
Data is changing constantly. So how do you use it in order to launch a campaign? And what's the best way to go about collecting it? And then once you have it, where do you put it? I know it sounds complicated, but there are some very easy things that you can do in order to collect data and use it for your next campaign. Meg Ugenti is going to be talking about all of that and more coming up on the next episode of the Mavens of Marketing.